Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Guys, I have one from the Mount Hospital in Bishopstoke, Hampshire, England, if anyone is interested. Google image that shit to see what we're dealing with. A few friends and I, 5 of us, decided we should check this place out. We've heard a few creepy things about it, so decide what the hell. The setting was during summer of 2013. Clear, relatively warm night. In friend's car, around 8:30 p.m., we slowly drove up the road, which runs parallel to some of the old grounds. Listening to the radio, song on BBC Radio 1, turn around every now and then, blah blah. Suddenly the radio goes quiet and the sound goes super deep as it gets to the chorus, turn around bright eyes, in an almost demonic tone. Think nothing of it, just a glitch in the system of the BBC. We pull up in the road just round the corner just half a minute later, get out the car, enjoying the feeling of adventure. There are houses on this road, but in terms of traffic, very quiet. We start walking relatively sparsely, separated 3 and 2. There's a long trail-type road leading down to the main gate with trees and part of the grounds to the left, bushes and a field to the right. We aren't scared at this point, but we all talk a little less as we're taking in our surroundings. "Haha, get off dickhead," says one of my mates. We shall call him Adam. Huh? We all wonder what the hell he is talking about. He's now maybe 6 feet ahead of the rest of us. One of you kicked my heel. None of us did. We were all too far away. We take this as just one of those things, and all carry on as normal, but you can feel the general cautiousness of the group rise. We get down to the main gate, and in the moonlight we can see the huge old building of the hospital, daunting and boarded up after years of vandalism. Closer to us in the foreground are the newer, yet also abandoned buildings, ruined by vandalism after it was shut down due to questionable law cases. You get that spooky feeling just looking at it. The trees surrounding it are slightly swaying. The darkness overpowers any moonlight trying to force its way around the old buildings. In we go. We go towards the oldest building. As we've heard, there is a way in. We find a small hatch, which was once boarded up, but which has since been ripped away. Like a cellar for an old pub or old farmhouse sort of hatch. This is our chance to get inside. One friend holds it open. From memory, it was the one hereafter referred to as Dan, as the 4 of us hop in, one by one, into a room of almost pure darkness. Only sounds are the echoes of us thudding onto the ground and a quiet dripping right next to the hatch. Too dark to see, probably the old water pipes. Dan jumps in last. That water just dripped on me. We all give him shit for being a virgin and do the typical jokes like, "That's the last time you'll be getting wet this week, blah blah." He seems a little off after that. We assume it must be the virgin jokes. So, carrying on with our adventure, we start trying to find our way around, touching shit, picking up stuff, kicking things, etc., like guys do. After a few minutes, we found the old wooden door into the main house from where we were. Sweet. It goes directly into a large kitchen. Everything in it is gone, ripped out or stolen. We move swiftly on, realizing there's nothing in this room of any interest to us. We looked around the ground floor a bit, nothing of too much interest. Just what you'd expect of a building of that age. Ripped carpets, books on the floor, damp walls, etc. Okay guys, it's time to go upstairs. We make our way towards the large spiral staircase that goes up one side of the building. I'm at the front, Dan is at the back. Halfway up I hear Dan say, "Turn around." Huh? We all look at him. He seems off and doesn't realize he said anything. We start to freak out. We quickly stumbled up the stairs together. We finally get to the top of the building. It's a room which is damaged by water, has wood as trash everywhere. We're somewhat disappointed. Adam says he has a bad feeling, like we shouldn't be there. I get it too. Everyone else except our mate Greg starts to feel it. Greg suggests we go the one step further and onto the roof, which is on that turret-looking part at the top of the building in the picture. We all macho up, agree, and make our way up. There's now 4 of us up there. Someone is missing. We quickly realize it's Dan. We call his name down to where we just came from. We hear, "What? I'm down here." Frustration in the voice of someone all the way on the ground. It was Dan. How the hell did he get down there so quick? We shout down to him asking how he got down there. He says he's been down there since we entered through the hatch and he never came in with us. We think he's taking the piss and we say we'll be down in a minute. All four of us make our way all the way back down, but on passing the kitchen, we find Dan's hoodie with a blood stain on the shoulder. We nope out of there and all scramble for the exit from where we came from. Manage to bash it open with the handle of what seems to be an old broom. There's Dan in his hoodie, a clean one, no stain. What the hell? We ask him what the hell is going on. He says he didn't come in with us. Explains that after holding the huge metal hatch open for all of us, it quickly shut, and he couldn't get in. He tried to bang on it, but we heard nothing. What the fuck is going on? We hear someone whispering, but one of those loud whispers saying, "Leave, leave now." It's coming from the roof. The splitting image of Dan without a hoodie on is leaning over the brick wall of the turret, staring at us. We seriously nope out of there, running up the path to the car. We are all freaked out. We go like 1,000 miles an hour to get away from that place. Someone or something was with us, and he looked exactly like Dan/X/. Same voice, same clothes, but it wasn't him. He followed us around that house, and we all knew he seemed different but thought nothing of it. What could it be? Anyone have any ideas? Because Dan hasn't been the same since. He was freaked out to shit, and it has basically traumatized him. He doesn't speak to us as much as he used to. I've read a rumor that one of the patients at the hospital used to like copying everything the nurses and carers did. Facial expressions, voices, and even clothes, to the point where the workers would start crying on the job and quit just days later, but surely not to the point where he looks exactly the same. Right? Anyone got answers?
I moved into my house when I was little with my 2 older brothers and my mum. I never really had anything happen when I was little, but I have in the last few years. I can't remember what year it started as such, and I cannot remember the very first instant, but I am sure it's not my imagination. In my house, when you walk through the front door, there are the stairs at the right, and if you go a little further, the front room is to your left. Then a little further to the left again is the dining room. Then opposite the hall is the kitchen. When you go upstairs and go to the left, there is one more step opposite. The little step is my brother's room. Then if you go right, there is the bathroom. Then turn left from the little step, go down the landing, and you've got my room opposite the landing and my mum's room to the left. So anyway, now you know the gist of my house, I'll begin. I can remember in about either early 2006 or late 2005 being in my dining room, alone, and I was playing on my GameCube when all of a sudden I saw a ragged-looking man just kind of glaring at me, which freaked me out. So I ran into my front room where my family was. That's not all. I had my friend around for a sleepover once, and he was on the toilet and no one else was upstairs, so the door was wide open, and I was halfway up the stairs when the door slammed shut. I assumed it was him until he asked me if I did it, and I was even watching the door when it slammed shut, and it wasn't him. I decided to sleep in my mum's room that night because she has a double bed. Before she went to bed, she was finishing some jobs downstairs because it was a school night, and so as you can guess, I was in there alone. Now I didn't have a problem with that until this. A couple of minutes later, I turned over and started to hear heavy breathing. Now at first I thought it could have been me, so I held my breath and it carried on, and straight away I shouted, "Mom, Mom, Mom!" As you can guess, she didn't believe me. About 6 or 7 months later, I thought all of that nonsense had stopped, but I was in my mum's room again that night, and she was on an early shift at work that day because she's a nurse. She was in the bathroom and usually tends to wake up when she's getting ready, and I was trying to get back to sleep, when suddenly I heard someone take a breath, and it wasn't me, and I was the only one in her room. There have been many other instances in my house, but those are the most dramatic ones.
We were poor, in debt, and lived in borderline poverty as a result. We were homeless for a little while until my parents called into a radio show of a nice man who helped people find houses when the local council never cared. He found us a place, luckily, and we stayed there for a few years until things got a bit better, and we could move to somewhere cheaper in a nicer neighborhood. My little brother and I had to share a room. When we'd go to bed and whenever we'd wake up in the middle of the night, a red glow would faintly show through our thin curtains. It wasn't any street light, as our room faced an alleyway with no houses opposite it, although the bathroom window at the front of the house had a light red glow too from a street light that seemed to amplify the later. The day got like some winter at 5 p.m. The glow wouldn't be there, but at 11 p.m. or something it would be. The room would be rearranged, and we'd have no idea where we were going. Me and my brother didn't speak about it at the time, as we didn't really understand what was going on, and we were literal children under 10, but we both experienced it. After this started, I became really paranoid and irritable, leading to my mom thinking I was autistic or had ADHD or something, because I misbehaved in school a lot as a result. She never, as she said, it was an excuse and would have hindered me in life, even though she would have got more money from the government for me. Also, after this started, our bedroom door just couldn't be opened from the inside, and this issue couldn't be fixed without buying a new door, which we had no money for. This all happened in the UK. We've since moved away from that place, as mentioned, and nothing like that has ever happened again, and my anger and misbehavior has subsided.
I live in the United Kingdom and live in the countryside. I live on a moderately busy lane and have loads of fields behind my house. 5 minutes up the road, there's a hill. It's called Cole Peak, changed for privacy, in Gloucestershire. It's about 6 fields away from my house and a 5-minute walk from the road. Me and my 2 mates go to the peak that overlooks our town and can see the Severn Bridge and a place called Stonehouse. We sat up at the top for a good hour chilling, so we decided to go home as it was around 2 a.m. They walk the roadway as it leads to the town where they live, and I decided to walk to the fieldway as I didn't want to walk down the road on my own after my mates turn off. So to get to the fields, you have to walk through a little forest for around 1 or 2 minutes. It was pitch black, moon shining bright, stars in the sky. As I said before, I don't get scared, so I wasn't that bothered. I got around 2/3 through the forest when I heard sticks cracking to my left as if something heavy was walking. I just glanced over and presumed it was a fox or badger. I get towards the gate and open it as it leads into the fields that lead to my house. I closed the gate and started to walk, and that's when I heard something I will never forget. It sounded like Minecraft creeper, but a lot deeper sounding and bigger. I turned around and on the path I could see this thing, around 6 feet tall and skinny, head shaped like a dog, and had horns. I thought my eyes were playing tricks, so I just stood there watching it, hoping it was going to vanish. Well, to my surprise, after around 5 seconds, it started to very slowly walk closer and closer until it got to the gate. It was like it didn't know what to do except just stand there. I was sweating, had red vision, and thought I was going to have an anxiety attack. I slowly walked across the field trying to figure out what the fuck it was. I looked back about halfway across the field and it was gone. Sigh of relief, can finally calm down and just take a nice walk home. Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. I was in the last field from my house in view. I knew all I had to do was jump over my fence and I was in my garden. I got to my fence and hopped over. I felt safe and secure. I was walking across my garden to get to the back door, and behind me, my drive light came on. Now this light only comes on if it detects motion or it's really windy and a branch sways in front of it. It wasn't windy, nor did I walk past it. All of a sudden I had this fear of getting snatched, so I quickly ran to my back door, opened it, and ran to my attic converted room. My skylight window looked over my drive where the light came on, and I stood on my bed and looked out the window. That's when I saw this werewolf-looking thing with horns, standing there sniffing around the cars. It wasn't a dog, it wasn't small enough to be a badger or a fox, and it wasn't a cow or anything like that. I got into bed and just watched movies till the sun came up and slept then. Ever since then, I never look out my window at night and never walk through those fields. I honestly don't know what this thing was, but it scared the shit out of me. I won't go out in my garden past 11 p.m.
Be me 16, just getting into urban exploration. Live in town, which was known for the now mostly deceased clothing industry. UK. Basically, lots of abandoned factories. Have a friend called Mark. He's the only guy who'll come with me. Maybe like our 3rd or 4th explore, head to an area known as Riverside. Lots of factories by a river, like 80% derelict. Head into a factory, it looks pretty generic from the outside. We start on the bottom floor. It's just a big empty floor space with a few chairs, tables scattered around. Friend does graffiti occasionally, and he notices like 3 pieces that have been left unfinished. We both guess that there were, or still are, security checks. Suddenly, we hear the sound of some big machinery starting up. Floor vibrates. Dust falls from the ceiling. Something is operating above us. The factory was 100% abandoned. All the windows were broken. Pigeons were everywhere. Graffiti. And you could also pretty much walk right in. Screw this. Turn to leave. Hear an old-style truck horn from outside. Run out, expecting to get caught, but it was deserted outside. No sign of any truck. Pics related, only one I could find of the factory.
It has taken me a long time to come forward with what happened to me that day, but I feel that I am ready to finally tell all. It happened years ago in the month of October back in 1998. My family and I lived in a rural area of West Yorkshire, in a village called Bramham. It's a countryside area with lots of farms, a quarry, and some rivers and streams. I liked to walk my dog around the lanes and tracks as it was a way for me to wind down and get some air. I had finished work on that particular evening. I'm out walking with my dog down a long farm track, a route we often take. It was early evening, so it was about 8 p.m. and it had gotten dark. I and the dog are just walking along. I let the dog off the lead so he could have a run, as we were about half a mile up this single farm track by then and there were no animals or people around, so I let him have a sniff around. As I walked, the dog was just doing his own thing. It was quiet with no sign of anyone around. I was enjoying the walk. There are hedges on both sides of the track the whole way, so it's hard to see clearly into the fields. And there are some woods to one side of me. As we walked even further along the track, the dog suddenly stopped. He froze and looked up the track in the direction we were walking. He must be aware of something up there as he starts growling and acting all strange. His hackles are up and he growls continuously. At that point, I thought it must be a fox, which is the way he'd acted before if we came across one. So I'm looking at the track to try and see a fox. I can't see anything anywhere. No fox, no cat, or any other animal. I can see how worked up he is, as now he is going mad and starts barking loudly. I had carried on walking, so by this point he was a short way behind me. So I turned to the dog to try and calm him, but he won't stop. If anything, he's getting worse. Something had really spooked him, so I turned to look up the track and I couldn't believe my eyes. Standing there looking at us was this thing. A massive creature stood there looking back in our direction. It must have walked between 8 to 9 foot steps out onto the field track before I had seen it. And now I can see it clearly, and it can see us. At this point, I was in complete shock at what I was seeing. I kept thinking, it can't be real. I honestly don't think my brain could process what I was seeing, because standing there on the field track was a huge creature of some kind. It was massively built and was about 5 feet wide across the shoulders and about 8 feet tall. I couldn't make out any facial features as the face was in shadow, but I could make out that it was covered in hair. It was standing about 30 meters from me, so I could see it clearly, but I could not make out any features even from that distance. It made no sound, and I never smelled or heard anything. To my disbelief at that moment, the dog runs straight towards it, the dog's barking as he runs in its direction. But the dog stopped about 15 meters away from this thing. He was clearly scared and just didn't know how to react. He had completely forgotten about me, and that's a first for my dog. Usually he would put my needs first, and maybe that was what he was doing, as he was by now in between me and this creature. But I could tell I was the last thing on his mind at this point. The dog barks a few more times, then he turns and runs straight past me and back up the farm track to safety the way we came in. No doubt now you can imagine how stunned I was. The whole incident lasted only seconds, and I just stood there paralyzed and trying to process what I had just seen. I must have been in shock. Because of what I did next, I did without conscious thought, and I can't explain why I did it. But as I stood there looking at this creature, I nodded my head quickly and I said, "All right to it. I know that's crazy, but that's what I did." Then I just calmly turned around and started walking back down the field track after my dog, all the time listening for this creature coming behind me. I was completely shitting myself. I think I acted without thinking, as I never looked back up that track until I got to the dog, and I couldn't see anything in the field anymore when I did. I didn't report this for years and years until other people came forward and started to share their accounts online with each other.
Be me in elementary school, probably first grade or whatever. I'm with some other kids in my class on the playground, a really fat kid and a tomboy girl, and I decide that we're too cool for the slides and sandbox and shit, so we start wandering off towards woods. Have to evade teachers because weak parents could sue. We walk through the woods and the sky gets all dark and gray like it's about to rain. Hear the whistle in the distance, meaning come inside, recess is over, but we're kind of lost now, so we can't figure out which way it came from. We're in a kind of small town and the woods aren't that dense, so we just start walking in a random direction. There are more and more trees as we go. It's getting kind of hard to walk over the roots. We come up to this place that looks like a tunnel made of trees and fences and stuff, and none of us can fit inside except the girl. So naturally, me and the fatty tell her to go through and tell us what's on the other side. She doesn't want to, so we make her. She gets on her hands and knees and barely makes it through. I think she cut herself on the fence wires, maybe. It was a long time ago. Wait around for like 10 minutes or something and she doesn't make another sound. Hear another whistle and this time we can tell where it's from, so we go that way and leave the girl. She can figure it out. Teachers count heads when we get back and that girl is missing. Me and Fatty look at each other and agree not to say anything because we might get in trouble. For a couple days after that, the teachers yelled at our class about wandering off and kidnappings and safety, etc. We never went into the woods outside the playground again. Both thought it was haunted. I never saw the girl again. Maybe she moved away. Fucking scared the shit out of me though when I was a kid.
So you left her there? She never came back and you didn't even wonder what happened to her?
Yeah, I mean, I was like 7 or something, so it makes sense. Looking back, it was messed up, but at the time we didn't care.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.